Oh, hello. You play must-kill commanders in EDH, don't you? Yeah, I bet you do. They're irresistible, come on. The best of the best, the most overpowered, the most synergistic, the most downright disgustingly delightful commanders. From Edgar Markov to Brea to Grand Arbiter Augustin IV, or as my playgroup likes to refer to him, a So yes, we all run them, but they are kill on sight. This video will go over how to have your cake and eat it too, how to protect your must-kill commanders through clever deck building decisions, and we'll start the series off with one of the must-killiest of them all, Atraxa. But actually, we'll start the video off with this wonderful new type of wallet from Ridge, sponsor of this video. Never mind must-kill commanders, how about must-kill bulky wallets overstuffed with faux leather and plastic, making your pants budge embarrassingly. You've heard of optimizing a magic deck. Well, Ridge wallets allow you to optimize all of this junk you shove into your pocket down to one slim, sleek, and highly effective wallet. The Ridge. It holds up to 12 cards plus room for cash. There's over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. The durable material means each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. Buy one wallet and carry it for life. In fact, the Ridge team is so confident that you'll like it that they'll let you test drive it for 45 days. You can send it back for a full refund if you don't love it. So that's zero risk, right? Try it, don't love it, send it back. No risk. And you can even get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/communitycollege or just by using code communitycollege. The link's in the description. So optimize your wallet today. Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, how can I stop my opponents from killing my broken commander on sight? Well, I have an answer for you. Make sure that you play plenty of must-kill creatures so that your opponent's pinpoint removal spells will have already been spent, and your commander can stick around long enough to enact your fiendish plans. Easy enough, right? What's that? You want to know what creatures are considered to be must-kills so that you can add them to your Atraxa Praetor's Voice deck? Few commanders demand immediate attention from your opponents like this Angel Horror, recently reprinted in Double Masters. Just look at all those words on this 4-color Angel Horror. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink? At the beginning of your end step, Proliferate? It slices, it dices, it attacks and blocks and gains life, and adds counters to anything and everything you want each turn. If there is a Swords to Plowshares, Terminate, or Beast Within lurking in any of your opponent's hands, they're going to aim it at Atraxa's direction toot sweet, so make sure you load your deck up with creatures they're going to want to kill before you play Atraxa, so that way their removal is depleted when you do. Let's begin with this little beauty, the Mother of Ruins, one of the best one-mana creatures ever created. Sorry, Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, but it's true. Once it hits the battlefield, Mother of Runes makes it so that your opponents have one turn to deal with her before her tap ability comes online. And once it does, pinpoint removal spells that have a color become problematic, to say the least. Mother of Runes taps to give target creature you control protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. To kill one of your creatures, your opponent will need to waste one spell that will prompt Mother of Runes' activated ability, which will fizzle the spell, and then, since she's tapped out, they will have an opening to burn a second spell to finally get rid of her. And if they spend both those removal spells to kill Mother of Runes, that's 2 less removal spells available to stop your commander. And if you don't need Mother of Runes to protect from removal spells, you can use her ability to push an attacker past blockers of a particular color, or to block a massive attacker that doesn't have trample. There's a reason why Mother of Runes is played in every tournament format she's legal in, and you should find room for her in your Atraxa deck. Well, let's be fair, you should find room for her in your white commander deck, whether it's Atraxa or not. She's pretty universal. Let's take a look at a card very specific to Atraxa that you'll want to run to power up the deck and have your opponents waste their removal on. Varel of the Hulklade. Varel has a dangerous word on it, and that word is double. For 2 mana, you tap Varel and double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land. While there are indeed many commanders who would enjoy this in their 99, without a doubt, Atraxa is the top of that list. If your Atraxa deck is playing with +1/+1 counters, savvy opponents will recognize Varel of the Hulklade as the potential powerhouse it is and will want to do something to get rid of it sooner rather than later. It will scare them. They'll be suspecting that you're playing a card like Simic Ascendancy, which you probably should be if you're in Atraxa 1/1 counters, as it's an enchantment that has an activated ability that puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. But what's really dangerous is that last part. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. With Varel active and doubling the counters on Simic Ascendancy, you can win that game, taking out all your opponents at once, so much sooner than they are going to be comfortable with. So when Varel resolves, it'll have a clear bullseye, depleting your opponent's removal. The next big baddie to be sure to include in your Atraxa deck is Chalet, Voice of Plenty, which is another card like Mother of Ruins in that it forces your opponents to deal with it before they can properly deal with your commander. In some ways, it's even better since it offers hexproof to you, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control as soon as it resolves. Giving you hexproof can also be surprisingly powerful against some popular effects. Bojuka Bog exiles target player's graveyard. Well, they can't target you with this angel in play. Settle the Wreckage exiles all attacking creatures target player controls. Chalet also has an activated ability. For 6 mana, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, which naturally plays very nice with Atraxa's Proliferate. The previously mentioned Varel of the Hulklade, oh hey, look, synergy! All in all, making it so that you can grow your army quite fast. Another must-kill on site is Forgotten Ancient, which has long been a commander's staple. And while it's good in all sorts of decks, it is particularly potent in an Atraxa build. Each time a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. In a multiplayer game, those counters can add up quickly, especially since players will spend so many turns in the early game casting ramp spells that don't put threats on the battlefield like Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, and Sad Robot. Then, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. With Atraxa in play, you'll be able to spread the counters out to multiple creatures, and then, when Atraxa proliferates, they'll all get bigger each turn. Next is a must-include that would make my dear friend Pleasant Kenobi proud. Aven Mindcensor. And while this isn't the sort of card that plays directly into Atraxa's strategy, its effect on the game is huge enough to annoy your opponents to the point of wanting to bolt that bird wizard. Why? Well, when Aven Mindcensor is on the battlefield, if an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. Most players have built in a lot of tutors to those decks. So the drawback on Aven Mindcensor is a huge thorn in everyone's side, especially since it has Flash. If your opponent plays Demonic Tutor to search for any card in their deck, flash this in and they get to just search the top 4 cards. Commander players love their ramp spells. Well, Rampant Growth, Migration Path, these all search libraries for basic lands, and Aven Mindcensor constricts that to just 4 cards deep in their library. No one will want to waste a battlefield sweeper like Wrath of God to get rid of Aven Mindcensor, but it is sure to make someone cough up a Swords to Plowshares or Terminate to get rid of it. And that's one less of those spells to hit your Atraxa. Next up, Scavenging Ooze's ability to exile cards from any graveyard is the sort of card that gets attention in Commander. Just about any deck is going to take advantage of their graveyard as a resource to some degree. But as long as Scavenging Ooze is around with green mana available, your opponent's plans will need to involve removing this little slug of of ooze first. That goes double if your opponent is specifically playing a commander that leverages their graveyard. Muldrotha the Gravetide reads, during each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a permanent spell of each permanent type from your graveyard, which can be insane card advantage, but with Scavenging Ooze, well, excuse me. The same goes for cards like Meren of Clan Nel Toth, which whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter, and at the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. These are just two examples of powerful, heavily played graveyard-centric commander cards that Scavenging Ooze absolutely can hose. Not to mention the nice little added synergy of Ooze's ability that when it exiles a creature, it adds a +1/+1 counter to it, which Atraxa can proliferate each turn, making this an increasingly large threat and an increasingly tasty target. Up next, oh boy, speaking of Pleasant Kenobi, there he is. Draeneth Magistrate is another huge annoyance for your opponents that is sure to fish removal spells from their hands. Remember, casting a commander from the command zone isn't casting from your hand, so with Draeneth Magistrate on the battlefield, your opponents won't be able to cast their commanders. This would be worth running as a lightning rod alone, since on its surface, it doesn't appear to feed into Atraxa's abilities. But since it's a human wizard, you could potentially build some synergies around either of those two tribes. Humans in particular have a lot of +1/+1 synergies. Champion of the Parish, Thalias Lieutenant, and many more put +1/+1 counters on themselves and others. So maybe you're going to get creative when brewing Atraxa and go 4-color humans, with that angel horror leading them to victory. Oh, and speaking of humans that play with counters, Tireless Tracker is a fantastic card for any green deck that plays lands. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Investigate, which puts a colorless clue artifact token onto the battlefield that can be sacrificed for 2 mana to draw a card. The card advantage it generates with clues by just putting lands into play is worthy of competitive tournament play, and savvy commander players will be looking to get it off the battlefield as soon as possible. The mana base to play a 4-color commander means you'll probably be playing fetch lands like Verdant Catacomb, Misty Rainforest, and Flooded Strand. And with fetch lands like that, you can generate clue tokens incredibly fast. The +1/+1 counters it gets from sacrificing clues lets it become a threat very quickly. And if Atraxa is able to start proliferating, it'll grow that much faster. So a Tireless Tracker is going to be bolt bait as far as your opponents are concerned. But always remember, in Commander, mana is king, and feybro Elder can generate a ton of mana once Atraxa is on the battlefield. Savvy opponents will want to get rid of this before it has a chance. When you tap it, for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. Plus it gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. Your opponents have a big incentive to destroy feybro Elder before you get a chance to cast Atraxa, because once you've resolved Atraxa, feybro Elder can tap to add white, blue, black, and green to your mana pool. This means any of these spells can now be cast to stop your opponents from killing Atraxa. Protect that horror with Arcane Denial, or Swan Song, Heroic Intervention, Dovin's Veto, Bant Charm, or good old Teferi's Protection. Not to mention, feybro Elder would be a 4/4 creature with Vigilance, so it can attack and block quite well. And with 4 toughness, it is not bolt bait, so better waste your Terminate instead. Finally, aggressive decks hate to see Spikeweaver hit the battlefield because it means that at least 3 big combat steps can be neutralized. For 1 mana, remove a +1/+1 counter from Spikeweaver, and creatures deal no combat damage this turn. Nice way to say, fog you to your opponents. But once Atraxa hits the battlefield and begins proliferating, it'll become harder and harder for any opponent to be able to punch through with combat damage. Not to mention all sorts of cards that play great with Atraxa. Calonian Hydra, when it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Evolution Sage, whenever a land enters your battlefield, you get to proliferate. And Loyal Guardian, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. All these and more more make Spike Weaver that much harder for your opponents looking to attack you, which means you'll have all the time in the world to execute all your Atraxa shenanigans if your opponents don't kill Spike Weaver ASAP. By making sure to pack your Atraxa deck with must-kill creatures such as these, you are likely to deplete your opponent's removal spells, or if any of these stick, add much-needed synergy and power to an already potent commander. Special thanks to this video's professional consultant, Benny Smith. Benny has been writing professionally about Magic for 20 years, and he's been writing about EDH Commander for 12 of them. He's even written the authoritative book about the format, The Complete Commander, which you can find along with his columns about Commander every week at Star City Games. Be sure to check the links I've added to this video's description if you'd like to hear more from Benny. And special thanks as well to this video's editor, Jonathan Choi, for helping to make Benny's words come alive on the screen. Do you like the idea of looking at must-kill creatures to run in potent commander decks? Let me know in the comments below which commander you'd like to see such a video on next. Special thanks once again to Ridge, sponsor of this video. Remember, you get 10% off today, and we're talking free worldwide shipping and returns just by going to ridge.com/communitycollege using code communitycollege via the link in this description. Ridge, optimize your wallet.
Good lord, what is happening in there?
The Mythic Championship.
The Mythic Championship. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, held entirely inside your office.
Yes.
Can I watch?
No.